Now we need to be able to read every single possible way of how to write a positive number or a negative number. There are only 3 ways of writing a positive number, and there are only 2 different ways of writing a negative number, so this isn't too bad. For positive numbers, we can write them as just a 3, no sign in front of it at all, that makes it a positive 3, or a plus 5, or a minus negative 7. Now we'll talk about that minus negative 7 a little bit more in just a moment. For negative numbers, we can write them as negative 4 and plus negative 6. That's it. Let's talk about that minus negative 7 for a second. If we think about a number line, if we start at positive 7 and we add a negative number, that's going to take it from positive 7 to negative 7. The effect of it is basically to swing it around the 0 point and go from one side to the other side. So now, if we're sitting here at negative 7 and we add another negative sign in front of it, where can it swing to? Only place it can do is swing over to this other side, to the positive side. Now there's kind of some good news here, because this rule is exactly the rule with the English language. Take, for example, the word possible. What does the word mean? It means something like, it can be done. If we add a negative to it, impossible, now suddenly it means that it can't be done. If we add a second negative to it, we would say, that's not impossible. Well, that means that it can be done again. So 2 negatives make a positive in English, and 2 negatives hitting the same number make it positive in math. So, that's our 3 skills. We now need to put them together so that we can work out these problems quickly and accurately. Now that we've got those skills nailed down, what we're going to do next is we're going to actually look at how to look at a whole problem and attack it in a way that's going to get the job done quickly and accurately. So, here we go. Let's look at our big problem here. Negative 6 plus negative 8 minus negative 7 plus 5 minus 6. We're going to do this in 3 steps. First step, all we want to do is write the sign of the number below each number. So for example, the negative 6 is a negative. I'm going to put a little negative sign here. The negative 8, or plus negative 8, is a negative. Minus negative 7, that's the double negative thing, and so we need to put a plus there. Plus 5 is positive, minus 6 is negative. Now, somewhere down the road, you're going to be able to do this without writing these little numbers, or these little signs, but right now, just go ahead and jot them down. So that's the first step. We just read them correctly. Second step. I found that most people would rather add than subtract. It's just a little easier. And so we're going to take advantage of the fact that if we know that the numbers have the same sign, then we can just add those numbers and use the sign of those numbers. And so let's do that here. We're going to first of all add up all the positives, and then we're going to add up all the negatives. So here we go. The positives are the 7 and the 5. So 7 plus 5 is 12. We jot that down. The negatives are 6, 8, and 6. Well, 6 plus 8 is 14. 14 plus 6 is 20. And so that's going to be minus 20. So we've got 12 minus 20. Our last step. Now we have 2 numbers that are different signs. And with those different signs, we know we have to subtract those 2 numbers. And again, we can do it in any order. I'm going to go 20 minus 12 because that's just a little bit easier. And 20 minus 12 is 8. Now we ask the question, what's the sign of our answer? We know the size is 8. What's our sign? And so we look at the 2 numbers and ask which number has the largest absolute value, or in other words, the largest size. The 20 does. And so, since the 20 is negative, our answer is going to be negative 8. Every one of the problems you're going to do now are going to have these same 3 steps. Identify whether the numbers are positive or negative, add the positives, add the negatives, and then do one subtraction and figure out what the sign is. You're going to get a series of questions now in this video. And in these questions, each one is going to have a little something different to learn. And what you need to do is go ahead, as you get a feel for them, hit pause when you see the question themselves and work it out. And then listen to the way we talk about it, the way it gets thought about and worked out, and see how much that matches. If you can match that nicely, it's going to help you out down the road. So here comes some questions. Okay, your turn. We'll start with -4 plus -9 minus -3. Well, the first thing we do is we just identify what sign each number has. The 4 is a negative, the 9 is a negative, and the minus -3 is a positive, because that's the double negative thing. Now we put together the positives and put together the negatives. So for the positive, it's just the 3, so we write down 3. For the negatives, it's -4 plus -9. Well, they're the same sign. We add them together. 4 plus 9 is 13, and they're both negative, so it's a -13. So we end up with 3 minus 13. And 3 minus 13, now we've got the situation where we have two signs. They're different. We're going to subtract them. 13 minus 3 is 10. And we're going to use the sign of the larger number, which is the negative. And so our final answer is -10. Next, we have 7 minus -8 minus 4. Again, identify the signs. 7 is a positive, minus -8 is a positive, and minus 4 is a negative. Add them all up. 7 and 8 are the positive. 7 plus 8 is 15. -4 is the only negative, so it's -4. And so we've got 15 minus 4. And 15 minus 4 is 11. What's the sign? The sign is going to be positive because the 15 is positive, and that's the larger number. Next, 3 minus -4 minus 12 plus -9. Okay, the 3 is a positive. The minus -4 is a positive. That's the double negative. The minus 12 is a negative, and the minus 9 is a negative. So we add the positives. The positives are the 3 and the 4, and they add up to 7. The negatives are -12 and -9, and they add up to -21. So we've got 7 minus 21. We subtract the 2. 21 minus 7 is 14. And we use the sign of the larger number, which is the negative. So our answer is -14. Okay, here's one worthy of your skills. -8 plus -9 minus -6 plus 4 minus 3 plus -4 minus 7 plus 3. Okay, size here, not an issue. We do the same 3 steps. First, identify the sign of each number. Then we're going to add the positives, add the negatives, do the subtraction, and figure out what the sign of the answer is. That's the game. So here we go. -8 is negative, plus -9 is negative, minus -6 is positive, plus 4 is positive, minus 3 is negative, plus -4 is negative, minus 7 is negative, and plus 3 is positive. So now we look for the positives. Well, the positives are the double -6, that's a positive, the plus 4, and the plus 3 at the very end. It looks like everything else is negative. So, 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 3 is 13. Now we tackle the negatives, and there's a bunch of those. We've got the 8, the 9, the 3, the 4, and the 7. And this is not necessarily a bad time to actually just line them all up, right? 8 and 9 and 3 and 4 and 7, and add it the old-fashioned way. Whatever way works for you is fine. But once we put those together, the 8 and the 9 is a 17. The 3 makes it 20, the 4 makes it 24, and the 7, 24 plus 7 would be 31. So we end up with a minus 31. Now we need to subtract those two numbers because we have one positive and one negative, and then figure out what the sign of the answer is. So 31 minus 13. Again, not a bad thing to scribble on the side of your paper. 31 minus 13. Do the long subtraction, carry the 1, the whole 9 yards. But 31 minus 13 is 18. And since the 31 is the bigger number, the sign of the 18 is negative. So you can see all the problems, no matter what size they are, when you're adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, you can do it in 3 quick, easy steps.